So my name is Tony Collins. I'm president of the Blake Collins Group. We focus on public relations with a specialty in crisis management. My career in public relations comes about from a non-traditional perspective. I started my career as a real estate executive where we focused on making sure the construction numbers worked, making sure the architectural design was perfect, and managing all the legal entanglements. I had several successful projects like that, but it wasn't until I ran into a community project that I began to discover the power and the absolute necessity to have good public relations. We went from having a very successful real estate development on paper to a near disaster from a public relations point of view. And I began to learn that public relations is absolutely critical. I've watched it over time. I've watched it evolve. It certainly, in the beginning when we were working on it, it was simply a matter of reaching out to the community, talking to the right reporters. But as the world has evolved, communications has become dynamic. It's absolutely essential that you understand all the aspects of communication, including digital media, traditional media, driving your message before it's needed, and absolutely integrating all aspects of your communications planning. I like to think of public relations as a changing and evolving field. There was a time when every major corporation had someone involved with telling their story from their perspective, but those days have changed. What is required now is someone who understands what is trending, what is occurring in the media world, and preparing themselves to be able to address it. If you're without a public relations professional now, you're basically blind. You're about to get blindsided, whether you're Apple Corporation or you could be the NFL. Something is going to occur where you need to have someone who really understands what the issues are, what the ebb and flow of the public relations marketplace is, and how to address it in a manner that advances your company's causes. A publicist is someone who has spent a career understanding who the key decision makers are, key influencers are in the industry, whether it's literary or it's newspapers or it's the Pulitzer Prize. But the world of media is changing so dramatically. It's being affected by the internet, it's being affected by social media, that those people aren't nearly as influential as they used to be. Oftentimes today, they are responding to social media as opposed to driving it. And so you really have to understand the entire complexity of the media environment. People often ask, how is a publicist different than a public relations professional? And I think of it this way. A publicist is responsible for telling your story directly as written without necessarily reflecting on what the current circumstances are. Your public relations professional is someone who understands where you're trying to go, what your message is, what your strategy is, and is constantly involved in updating that strategy and those messages to fit the current circumstances. It's no longer enough just to say, we're a great company. You have to be able to say, we're a great company in this context and because of these reasons, and we're reflecting on everything that goes on around us and evolving with it. In the early days, everyone did a press release because it was the most convenient way of getting across a message. But in today's world, with multiple platforms and people constantly being barraged by information, a press release is pretty much antiquated. If you want to deliver a message, you now have to understand how your audience wants to hear it. It's really important. So if you've got a millennial audience, you're probably talking about getting it to them in a text message format, in an Instagram format, across mobile or digital platforms. There are certain things that are still required if you're dealing with banking and certain things that are electronic press releases in their standard forms. You have to do that. But if you really want to get across to people who are in the marketplace, you've got to understand what platforms they relate to and begin to transmit your information that way. Any campaign today that's successful has to start with understanding what it is they're trying to communicate to their audience and what that audience is prepared to receive. We refer to it as the nudge. You cannot drive people. You have to nudge them and have them believe that it's their idea. So your content has to be about what is this person prepared to hear, how are they prepared to hear it, and how can we make sure that everything that we do, from that press release, through that text message, through that Vine, is aligned. It's about alignment. Is everything that I say and do align with my content? I can't talk to you about being prepared to be healthy and in the middle of that deliver unhealthy messages. I can't talk to you about being driven by purpose and principles and then do something unethical. So content is king. Content, and what I like to refer to as alignment. What everyone in an audience is looking for is clarity and alignment. They want to know that the people that are talking to them are consistent and that they're dependable. I believe companies are learning in today's marketplace that it's not how much money you spend, it's how well you spend it. It's very, very important to deliver the message with a purpose and with alignment. It isn't always as important to spend a ton of money on it. What you have to do is be successful in those mediums. I've watched numerous campaigns where people have spent the money in the correct way, in the right video, in the right mechanism, and overcome multi-million-dollar campaigns. We've been involved in a couple of those kind of campaigns as Blake Collins, where we've watched our opponents spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars, perhaps millions of dollars, on a message and completely miss the mark because they didn't have the right digital mechanism and they didn't have the right connection to the target audience. So we think that the critical element is knowing how to do it right, and that doesn't always mean big dollars. It means having great professionals. In today's world in public relations, I think it's just a time where access to the tools that will change people's minds is the greatest it's ever been. We focus on those things that will affect people's thinking and cause them to take action, and those tools are now available to us in so many different mechanisms that we're sort of surprised at how available they are and how inexpensive they are. A social media campaign, a video campaign is far more in the reach of the traditional business and or public relation effort than it's ever been before. And I personally predict that those costs will continue to make it more likely that you'll see people in public relations using those mechanisms, be they video, social media, Vines. I think you're going to continue to see those costs drop and more public relations professionals and firms take advantage of it. One of the things I like to tell my clients is that when you are working on trying to communicate, it really is an external process first. Try to understand what it is that your clients are thinking about and what's important to them, and then begin to move in their direction. Everyone wants you to communicate with them, but they're only prepared to hear it certain ways. So what we do is externally focus and try to get out of our bubble and say, not what is it that we have to sell you, but what is it that you want to say to your audiences and to the people that you're working with. So it's an external focus. I think that what we try to do is understand that you're the expert, you know exactly what it is that makes your business tick, and our job is to help you communicate that to your key audiences. As a public relations firm, we're always running into people who say, I want you to get me in the newspaper, get me in the media because I want to be competitive. And what we keep coming back to them with is, tell us who you are and what you are that makes you unique to your clients. It's really about having a specific purpose and a focus on who you are and what you're trying to do, and then having a laser focus on it. If you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. So our first effort is always to sit with that team and say, tell us who you are and tell us who it's important to talk to about it, and then let's focus on doing that and not get distracted by anything else. And let's tell them that message across every medium continuously until they understand it. Cybersecurity is becoming more and more an issue that we talk about in the media every day. One of the things we know is that as the development of cyber attacks continues, almost anyone can be attacked. What's most critical, we believe, is that your brand is strong enough to sustain it. There have been recent attacks on the American military and others, but the bottom line was people began to look at those attacks and say, that doesn't make sense. It's inconsistent with the brand. So I think it's going to continue, but I think what has to happen is, along with improving the technology of cybersecurity, you have to maintain your brand so that people will have second thoughts about what it is that's being said. They will know instinctively that your brand isn't consistent with what's being said. And I think that will be as much a part of cybersecurity as the technology that follows it. As I look in the future of public relations, I think I'd make a couple of recommendations. One, have a communications plan that matches with your strategy. Then hire the right professional that fits your organization to implement that plan, and understand that you can do that across all the platforms at a cost that's very reasonable. So basically have a communications plan, have a strategy, have a communications plan, get the right people in place to help you implement that. And in today's world, that's definitely within your reach.